Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjanaya Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vana Chari Yamunatira Vana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Radha Madhava Shri Radhe. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudriyat Nasta Prayeso Abhatreso Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 11. Jadabharata instructs King Rahugana, and text number 2. I think before you had the meter. Tadaiva Rajan Urukar Hameta
Tadaiva Rajan Urukar Hameta
Vitana Vityoru Vijirmbiteshu
Vitana Vityoru Vijirmbiteshu
Na Vedavadeshu Hi Tattvavada Prayena Shuto Nuchakashti Sadhu.
Prayena Shuto Nuchakashti Sadhu. Tatveva Rajan Urukar Hameta.
Tadaiva Rajan Urukar Hameda
Vitana Vityoru Vijirmbiteshu.
Vitana Vidyoru Vijirmbiteshu
Na Vedavadeshu Hitattvavada.
Na Vedavadeshu Hi Tattvavada
Prayena Shudo Nuchakasti Sadhu.
Prayena Shudo Nuchakashti Sadhu. Tatvaiva Rajan Urukar Hameda Vitana Vidyoru Vijirmbuteshu Na Vedavadeshu Hi Tattvavada Prayena Shudo Nuchakashti Sadhu. Tateva Rajan Urukar Hameda Vitane Vidyoru Vijirmbiteshu Vedeshu Navedavadeshu hi tattvavada Prayena sudonu chakashti sadhu. Tata, therefore, Eva, indeed, Rajan, O king, Uru Garha Meda, ritual related to material household life. Related to Vidana Vidya, in knowledge that expands. Uru, very greatly. Vijnambiteshu, among those interested. Now, not. Vedavadeshu, who speak the version of the Vedas. He, indeed. Tattvavada, the spiritual science. Prayena, almost always. Shuddha, free from all contaminated activities. Nu, indeed. Chakashti, appear. Sadhu, a person who is advanced in devotional service. Translation and purport given by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. My dear King, talks of the relationship between the master and the servant, the king and the subject, and so forth are simply talks about material activities. People interested in material activities, which are expounded in the Vedas, are intent on performing material sacrifices and placing faith in their material activities. For such people, spiritual advancement is definitely not manifest. Purport. In this verse, two words are significant: Vedavada and Tattvavada. According to Bhagavad Gita, those who are simply attached to the Vedas and who do not understand the purpose of the Vedas or the Vedanta Sutra are called Vedavada Ratha. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipaschita Vedavada Ratha partha nanyat astiti vadina. Kamatmana svarga para janma karma phala pradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishvarya gatim prati. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say there is nothing more than this. Bhagavad Gita 2.42 and 43. The Vedavada followers of the Vedas are generally inclined to karma kanda, the performance of sacrifice according to the Vedic injunctions. They are thereby promoted to higher planetary systems. They generally practice the Chaturmasya system. Akshayam havai Chaturmasya yajna shukritam bhavati. One who performs the Chaturmasya yajna becomes pious. By becoming pious, one may be promoted to the higher planetary systems. Urdvam gachanti sattvasta. Some of the followers of the Vedas are attached to karma kanda, the fruitive activities of the Vedas, in order to be promoted to a higher standard of life. Others argue that this is not the purpose of the Vedas. Tat yadaiveha karma jitta loka kshiyata evam uttara punya chitta loka kshiyate. In this world, someone may become very highly elevated by taking birth in an aristocratic family, by being well educated, beautiful, or very rich. These are the gifts for pious activities enacted in the past life. However, this will be finished when the stock of pious activity is finished. If we become attached to pious activities, we may get these various worldly facilities in the next life and may take birth in the heavenly planets. But all this will eventually be vanished. Kshina punya martya lokam vishanti. Bhagavad Gita 9.21. When the stock of pious activity is finished, one again has to come to this Martya Loka. According to the Vedic injunctions, the performance of pious activity is not really the objective of the Vedas. The objective of the Vedas is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Vedaischa sarve aham eva vedya. The objective of the Vedas is to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are Vedavadis are not actually advanced in knowledge, and those who are followers of Jnana Kanta, Brahman understanding, are also not perfect. However, when one comes to the platform of Upasana and accepts the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes perfect. Aradhanam sarvesam Vishnur aradhanam param. In the Vedas, the worship of the different demigods and the performance of sacrifice are certainly mentioned, but such worship is inferior because the worshippers do not know that the ultimate goal is Vishnu. Nate vidu svarta gadim hi Vishnu. When one comes to the platform of Vishnur Aradhanam or Bhakti Yoga, one has attained the perfection of life. Otherwise, as indicated in Bhagavad Gita, one is not a Tattvavadi, but a Vedavadi, a blind follower of the Vedic injunctions. A Vedavadi cannot be purified from material contamination unless he becomes a Tattvavadi, that is, one who knows Tattva, the absolute truth. Tattva is experienced in three features: Brahmedi, Paramatmedi, Bhagavan idi Saptiyate. Even after coming to the platform of understanding Tattva, one must worship Bhagavan, Vishnu, and his expansions, or one is not yet perfect. Bahonam janmanam ante jnanavam mam prapatyante. After many births, one who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna. The conclusion is that unintelligent men with poor fund of knowledge cannot understand Bhagavan, Brahman or Paramatma. But after studying the Vedas and attaining the understanding of the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is supposed to be on the platform of perfect knowledge. Om Jnana Dimarandasya Jnananchala Shalakya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stabidam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamakyam Tatadi Swapatandiham Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajadam Sakana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sachivam Satvedam Savatutam Parichanesaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pathan Sakana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gobesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanda Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudedevi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpaturupyasya Kripa Sindhubhye Evacha Patitanam Pavanepyo Vaishnavepyo Namo Namaha. Ye Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna, good morning everyone. So we are in the middle of the discussion between Jadabharata and King Rahugana. And here two words are given, Vedavada or Tattvavada. And the question is there actually a difference? And if there is a difference, which should we follow? Vedavada means literally those who follow the teachings of the Vedas, or Vedavadis are following the Vedavada, the philosophy of the Vedas. And Tattvavadis, they follow or they seek after the philosophy of Tattva. And the question is there a difference? And if yes, why? Because I think we all came to Krishna consciousness because we are seeking knowledge in the Vedas. We are seeking truth in the Vedas. And here, but seemingly, Jadabharata is mentioning that even if we seek knowledge in the Vedas, there are some nuances, and we might come to wrong conclusions. But everyone is actually seeking after tattva. Everyone is seeking after truth, regardless whether one is a Krishna conscious devotee or a religious one or non-religious. Everyone is seeking after truth. Somehow in this Kali Yuga, that value has not been diminished. People still value tattva, truth. And Prabhupada, he says, we are bringing with his teachings, and of course Mahaprabhu's teaching, they are giving Parama Tattva, knowledge of the absolute truth. Because everyone is after truth, here is the absolute truth. If you understand this truth, all the other truths, relative truths, will be known to you. So the question is, why is then there a difference, Vedavada and Tattvavada? Because we are studying the Vedas, and in this way we want to understand the truth. And the thing is, because the Vedas can be very difficult, and if we don't have a proper teacher who teach us what the meaning of the Vedas are, we might start to become ritualistic instead of becoming spiritual. In today's time, people would say, I like being spiritual, I am spiritual, I'm inclined to be spiritual, but I am not religious. And I think the thought behind this is coming probably exactly in these two words, Vedavada and Tattvavada, that somehow, even though we have lived religion over the so many years and centuries, somehow the real purpose of the religion is lost, and we have rather become ritualistic instead of spiritual, which is why people don't find truth in religion anymore or in Vedas anymore. So that's the discussion that Rahugana is bringing up. And why are the Vedas difficult? I think I myself haven't read the 4 Vedas, and I heard this is quite difficult to understand even. I think, what is it, Yajur Veda or Rig Veda is like somehow the very oldest one, and where most of the texts are still available today, and still it's quite confusing. And also if you look how the Vedas are categorized, they have 4 main categories. They have a section called Brahmanas, Samhitas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. And 3 of them, Brahmanas, Samhitas, and Aranyakas, they deal mostly with how we do rituals, how we perform sacrifices, what mantras we chant, when we do the rituals, all these details. And Upanishads, they speak some gyan, they speak some knowledge. So we see actually the most part of the Vedas is karma kanta, how we do rituals. And little bit of gyan is also there. And Prabhupada says, if we don't understand the purpose of the Vedas, why we do this, then we might be misdirected. Krishna, when Nanda Maharaj is preparing the sacrifices for Indra, Krishna comes and asks some interesting questions, and he says, what is this ritual that you are performing? Do you know why we do this ritual? And Krishna says, interestingly, there are 2 types of people. One, those who know why they do a certain thing, and others who don't know why they do a certain thing. And it's beneficial if we know why we do a certain thing, instead of not knowing. So Krishna says, even if we want to do rituals, we should first understand why we do it. Otherwise, we become a blind follower. So of these Vedas, this complicated text, to derive the truth is very difficult. And Prabhupada here quotes, for example, Bhagavad Gita 2:42 and 43, and he says that people who don't have real knowledge or small knowledge, they are attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, and they think that the ultimate goal of life is having a good life, a good birth, power, wealth, and so forth. And this is not just the conclusion of those who have little intelligence, but also of those who don't follow the Vedas. I mean, general people or modern philosophy at the end is also we try to research and examine the whole world, but at the end we want to make our lives better. So that's also their conclusion, thinking there is nothing higher than making one's life easy and comfortable. So this is the Veda Vatarata. And Krishna says, what's the danger? You can have a good life, you can even promote to higher planets, but eventually all these results will fade away and you have to come back again. So all the good things we do, all the pious activities, one time they will be gone, these results, and we have to start again. This is you will be entrapped in the Martya Loka. So the question is, what is the essence of the Vedas? What are they then actually meant to tell us? And I think that's quite a question that for centuries people and saints want to understand. If you look at the history, we see at one stage Buddha, he even rejects the Vedas because he didn't find the meaning of the Vedas, why animal sacrifices, etc. There is no essence behind it, why killing animals. So Buddha even starts to reject the Vedas. He's not seeing any truth behind it. Then later we see Sankaracharya coming, bringing back the Vedas, and now he's giving his understanding of the Vedas, bringing Advaita Tattva in it, and says, okay, the Vedas speaks of monism. And over the centuries, then different acharyas come, and they try to give the essence of the Vedas. This is what the Vedas actually meant to say. Ramanujacharya says, no, we are not monism, we are both in between dualism and monism. And Madhvacharya comes and says, no, everything is dualism. And Lord Chaitanya comes again and says, no, we are in between monism and dualism. So we see that even the acharyas, there can be so many things derived from the Vedas and so many conclusions. So this question is always prominent. What is the essence of the Vedas? Because at the end, everyone wants to know Tattva, the absolute truth. What is the absolute truth, the highest truth? Only then we can make advancement. And one of our acharyas, recent acharyas, Jiva Goswami, he's also pursuing these questions. What is the essence of the Vedas? And he has written Sandarbhas, and the first Sandarbha is literally called Tattva Sandarbha, meaning he wants to put now the Tattva, the real Tattva, in position. He wants to establish the real Tattva that the Vedas speak, because most of the people have become Vedavadas instead of Tattvavadis. And how Jiva Goswami is doing, this is very interesting. He is bringing many arguments. At the end, he wants to say that the Tattva, real Tattva of the Vedas, you can find in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is his message. And he is making some argumentation steps. He first says that Shrutis, the four Vedas, in today's time it's impossible to understand. Forget it. In today's time, no one can understand. It's impossible to understand the four Vedas. Therefore, we should go to the Puranas and Itihasas. Now, at that time, many people were giving high value to Shrutis, but not to Smritis, not to the Puranas. And Jiva Goswami, he brings then argumentations and Shastric evidence why for this age the Puranas are the literature for us, for Kali Yuga people, for us. Because the Puranas, they speak the same message as the Vedas, but in simplified ways, in story forms, in pastime forms. But then the next question is, there are 18 Puranas, and I haven't read any of the other Puranas, and I think they are also difficult to understand. Because even the Puranas are not so straightforward, which we think, because one Purana might say this demigod is the highest, other Purana will say no, this demigod is the highest. So then again, which of the Puranas is the best or the highest, which has the highest truth in it? So Jiva Goswami again brings some tools how to derive the best Purana out of these 18 Puranas. And one or how to bring a hierarchy of the Puranas. And he says one might say we can bring a hierarchy if we look at the gunas in which the Puranas are spoken. In the day of Brahma, in the one day of Brahma, different gunas are predominant at different times. Like when in a day of our life, of a human life, we have different gunas at different times in a cycle, in a circle. Similarly, for Brahma also in his life, different gunas are predominant in the universe. And depending on which guna is predominant, certain Puranas were the main scriptures. We know goodness, sattva gun. They're usually the Puranas, 6 Puranas which typically speak the glories of Hari, of Vishnu, are the predominant. But at times where other gunas are predominant, like passion, then Brahma is predominantly spoken of. And when ignorance is predominant, mainly Shiva is spoken of, his glories, the Puranas promote. Also Jiva Goswami says sometimes in Brahma's time the gunas can be even mixed in certain time. I think probably most of our time is mixed gunas, we can say. We feel in all the gunas at the same time, and at that time different other demigods are promoted, or the pitas, the forefathers, are promoted. So Jiva Goswami says, even if you look at these gunas and make a hierarchy, we will say, okay, the 6 Puranas which speak of sattva, they must be the highest. But that is not yet enough, he says, because even they speak of Vishnu, of Hari, they don't really describe the true identity of Hari, the true tattva of Hari. They don't say if Hari is at the end impersonal, if he is diverse, or what is his, if he has a form. They don't give a clear message to it. So in this way, Jiva Goswami brings further and further argumentation, and then he also says Vedanta Sutras we cannot really rely on in this time, because the Vedanta Sutras are also quite difficult to understand. So there is one scripture in this time, in this world, that fits the definition of a Purana, that has a Paurusheya nature, meaning it is coming from the spiritual world, that has the main teachings of the Vedas, Itihasas and Puranas, and it is fully available on earth today. Yeah, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. This is the book. This book is not only this characteristic, but it is fully, in full version, we have the Bhagavatam. Other Puranas, they were forgotten, they were lost some parts. Some people even put some part in it, their additional thing in it, and one cannot today say anymore, is this an original text or not? Is this an original verse or not? But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is fully available as it was from the beginning. So therefore, Jiva Goswami says, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the emperor Purana. And we can even see in this story, pastime of Vyasadeva, after he has written the Itihasas, Puranas, Vedanta Sutras, he was still dissatisfied, and only after writing Srimad Bhagavatam, he was satisfied. And why is that? Because the Bhagavatam does not speak just Vedavada, but it speaks Tattvavada. What it means by Tattvavada, Prabhupada quotes here, Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yakyanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdayate. So the learned transcendentalists, so the Tattvavadis, they say that the highest Tattva, Param Tattva, absolute truth, can be known as Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. So this is the message of the Bhagavatam. So that's the Tattva. After this we are going. And then it will explain further and further that this Tattva, fully manifested, is in the Bhagavan form, or Krishna. He is the absolute truth, the Param Tattva. So it's when the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Vedaischa sarver aham eva vetyo Vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. Of all the Vedas, if you think you have understood the Vedas, of all the Vedas at the end to understand is Krishna. Krishna is to be known from the Vedas. If that is not, if we give explanations to the Vedas, and if we don't arrive at this conclusion that at the end we have to know Krishna and then act in the service to Krishna, if that is not given, then we have not found the truth. We have not found the Tattva. And I think also Vedavada or Tattvavada, we can also look this into two other terms, Jnana and Vijnana. What is the usual meaning that we give to Jnana and Vijnana, or what is the difference we give to these two terms?
Jnana is knowledge, and Vijnana is if you live it.
If you live it, or realized. Krishna gives also another meaning of Jnana and Vijnana in the Bhagavad Gita. Does someone know? It's the 7th chapter. It says, Jnanam teham sa Vijnanam, Krishna says. And the translation that Prabhupada gives, and also the other acharyas, is Jnanam can mean also knowledge, phenomenal, knowledge of this phenomenal world or material world, and Vijnanam, knowledge of the numinous world, spiritual world. This is also a definition of Jnana and Vijnana. So if we have realized knowledge, that means we have knowledge of the spiritual world. What does it mean, spiritual world? At the end it means we have knowledge of Krishna. If we have Vijnana, means we have knowledge of Krishna. Krishna explains what that means. He says, if you see in everything, all the things you see, you observe, if you see me behind this, that is Vijnanam. Like if you see the thread behind the pearl, then that's Vijnanam. 7th chapter that Krishna says. It's another interesting definition that Krishna gives. And I am bringing also this definition because Rahugana's question starts with this. Just some verses before, he speaks of this phenomenal world. Right? Rahugana or Jadabharat says, now you are a servant, you are a king, I am a servant. In the next life, I am a king, you are a servant. Shri Jagannath Balaji Subhadra Maharani ki, Koranitai ki jai. This is all, and Jadabharat says, this is all temporary, so don't look after this. But then Jadabharat says, how can you, but even if it's temporary, this is important, right? I mean, I have to do my duty as a king. I cannot say it's temporary and then I neglect my duty. It's like, and in this way, I am affected, whatever covering I have. This is the argumentation that Rahugana puts forward. He says, if you put a rice in a pot and warm it up, that fire will affect the rice and make it cook. So similarly, even if you are inside your body, whatever is outside happening, that fire will affect you. This is the argumentation that Rahugana is putting forward. He's saying, even if you are a soul, whatever happens in material world, your soul is affected by this. So this is an argumentation that Rahugana brings, and Jadabharata will later explain, no, this is not true. Your soul is not affected, but your mind is affected. But I am bringing this point because, again, Rahugana is speaking of this phenomenal world. He has knowledge of this material world, how this works, but he doesn't have the knowledge of the spiritual world. He doesn't have Vijnanam. And therefore, Jadabharata says, you speak like an experienced person, but you don't have real understanding of it. And Prabhupada says here, he brings the Bahunam Janmanam Ante verse, that to get this Vijnanam is very difficult. It's also 7th chapter. But before this verse, Krishna is giving another verse, Manushyanam Sahasreschu Kaschit Yadidi Sittaye, meaning that among those 1,000 men who endeavor for perfection, or in other words, who endeavor for Gyan or Vedavada, out of this, only few at the end will search after Tattvavada, will search after Vijnana. And when will they make this step? Only after many, many births. Bahunam Janmanam Ante. So we can see in even ourselves, in our life, usually we are more inclined to be ritualistic and tradition, etc. But we can miss why we are doing it. We can miss the truth behind it. And what is the remedy, or what is the solution for us? I mean, Krishna says, Bahunam Janmanam Ante. Usually it takes many, many births till we can get Vijnanam. So is there no hope for us? No, there is hope. The hope are the devotees at the end. Prabhupada brings here the verse Aradhanam Sarvesham Vishnur Aradhanam Param. This is a verse or a statement spoken by Lord Shiva to Parvati, and Lord Shiva says Aradhanam Sarvesham, of all different types of worships that exist in this material world, what is the highest worship? Vishnur Aradhanam Param. The highest worship is the worship of Vishnu. But there is also a second part to that statement, and this means Tasmat Parataram Devi Tadyanam Samarchanam. Lord Shiva says, even though Vishnu's worship is the highest, there is one worship that is even more higher than the worship of Vishnu, and that's the worship of the devotees, of course. Yeah, Vishnu Aradhanam, Krishna Aradhanam, he's meaning in a similar case. But he says, even higher than this is the worship of the devotees of Vishnu or Krishna. So, by surrendering to them, to the devotees, these acharyas, the spiritual masters, who from all these vast scriptures, of all these Vedas, who then derive the real tattva behind it, the real meaning behind it, and give it to us, and give a process to us, to them we have to be very, very grateful. We have to worship them and render service to them, and in this way we can also one time in our life then realize tattva, real, true tattva, instead of being just ritualistic and just doing the things every day because we have done it for so many years. These were some of my points which I wanted to share. Thank you very much for your attendance, and if you have any comments, or something to share, you are invited. Otherwise, we can fast today's Ekadashi. Yeah.
I have a question. Thank you so much for your lecture. When you were mentioning that the Vedas are written in the Trigunas and that some Vedas are proclaiming that some demigods are the highest, I was like, what? Because, yeah, the Vedas, that means wisdom, truth or knowledge. And how is it that there are wrong statements in
I mean, even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you have one section where Lord Shiva is really described as the highest entity. I think 8th canto, where they churn the milk ocean, and then Shiva comes and protects them. If you read these statements, they speak like you are Paramatma, you are in everyone's heart, and you are the highest. Right? So I think the message is not wrong what the Vedas say. Thing is just they are written in the certain gunas to help the people in those gunas to advance. And good people who are maybe mostly in ignorance, in tamasic, they cannot immediately jump to the higher gunas, so therefore the Vedas give the other statements for them to understand. Also like Kali worship, those who like to eat meat, instead the Vedas saying them don't eat meat, they say, okay, eat meat, but regulate first. In this way, it's a worship in Tamagun, but Vedas hope with this worship that they can purify slowly, and then transcend Tamagun, and then come to the Rajagun, and etc. So Vedas, in that end, they try to bring us step by step. In this way, I think we can say it's not wrong or give false statements.
Of course, if they tell you, okay, you can do this and it will lead you to these benefits and so on, it's a different thing than if they proclaim that, for example, Indra is the highest, or this is your own statement. Or how can we see that it's actually right?
And I think when we say he is the highest, Indra is the highest, or Brahma is the highest, I think Vedas, they don't mean in absolute term. Sometimes we also speak, you are the best devotee, right? Or you are the best mother, you are the best father. Yeah? We also say like this. I think there, at the end, we need the acharyas to say, to understand, is that an absolute statement, or is it a relative statement? Yeah. Therefore, I think also Jiva Goswami goes through all this different argumentation, etc. I mean, as a devotee, you will think, okay, after Bhagavatam, I'm fine. And we might not be interested in why now Jiva Goswami goes all those 3 different stages and argumentation, because we need an acharya who can establish this at the end. I think that's the... Even, in the Puranas, they speak of the highest Purana, the Bhagavatam, but even there are 2 types of Bhagavatam. There is one Bhagavatam describing Krishna, and one Bhagavatam describing Lord Durga. And there is even argumentation which Bhagavatam is now meant. And again, Jiva Goswami explains why the Bhagavatam of Krishna is meant as the highest. So again, therefore we need the acharyas. This is what I would say. I don't know myself. I haven't read.
It makes sense. I have another
Yeah.
question. So, as I understood, this Vijnana we can only tell if it's really directly connected to Krishna. And if the Brahman realization in that sense is there, it's not Vijnana. Okay.
I think here also people will give different. I think the impersonalist will say their knowledge is Vigyan, they will say. But what Prabhupada, if I remember, describes in that purport, he says that knowledge of the Brahman is not yet Vijnana. And
I was just reminded of this sentence, Aham Brahmasmi, I'm Brahman, and I was like, oh, sometimes he's also writing in the book that this is actually the realization that I am actually Brahman. And
that's Gyan actually.
mm,
That's Gyan. That's already spiritual in this sense if you compare to the other knowledge that exists. But that is just Gyan. And then when Krishna starts the 7th chapter of the Gita, Prabhupada says phenomenal numinous, giving translation. I was wondering why he says phenomenal numinous, not realized and theoretical knowledge. Then the acharyas also start to give this explanation, and they say because only if you know that Krishna is behind everything, only then it's Vijnana. So Vijnana means you know Krishna, his pastimes, etc., and that he is working as a thread behind the pearls. Only then it's Vijnana.
and if you may allow the last question I had yesterday, but they couldn't answer. So when I was reading through this text of King Rahugana, what he said, that actually, yeah, we are a spiritual soul, but then we have to act in a material world in a certain way according to rules. Made sense for me. And then, of course, now Jatavarata is just as in especially the text, like the previous text, he's saying like, yeah, should I read it?
Mm-hmm.
My dear king, although you are not at all experienced, you are trying to speak like a very experienced man. Consequently, you cannot be considered an experienced person. An experienced person does not speak the way you are speaking about the relationship between a master and a servant, or about material pains and pleasures. These are simply external activities. Any advanced, experienced man considering the absolute truth does not talk in this way. And I was wondering if the things that Rahugana actually told were incorrect in that sense, because we had so many lectures and Prabhupada in purpose also say like, yeah, he's right actually, or he's just speaking knowledge that he really doesn't believe or didn't realize in that sense, and that's why Jatavarata would just as
And also Rahugana is speaking also of, at the end he's kind of speaking Varnashrama actually, right? He says we have, even though we are spiritual, we have a body, so we have to act according to, but that's his statement. He's actually speaking Varnashrama at the end, right? And I think his statements are true, and also what Jatavarata says is true. And I would say this is because Jatavarata, he wants now to bring Rahugana to the next level. It's like Madhyamadikari and Uttamadikari. For that we can understand certain things, the Uttamadikaris will come down and give us easy things that we can apply. We are not on the level like Jatavarata, where we have no material designations at all, where we can just leave behind it. So for these people, we have Varnashrama and all this knowledge which Rahugana says, and this is true. And Prabhupada emphasized this also, because as long as we have conditioned, we should accept our Swadharma. But here, Rahugana, he wants to bring the next position, and that's even higher than this, that at one end, you have to even be detached from this and come to the truly pure stage. And it's interesting, Jatavarata, he doesn't speak this to everyone, you know. He has met, his family, also his friends, he haven't never spoken this. Only now he starts to speak, and I think because he sees a hope, or he knows, Rahugana is now ready to make the next step. And I think therefore he's making these statements. And Rahugana's statements are all true in this sense. But also Jatavarata wants now also say, okay, but you have focused too much on it, now focus also on the spiritual aspects. So Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.